So what I'm going to talk about today, and it's kind of an interesting story, is private-public partnerships. About a year and a half ago, I started getting calls from industry, from small companies, from even the casinos in Las Vegas, because that's where we're at, to get access to our HPC environment. And I thought it was interesting because we got more calls and more calls and more calls. And it was the same story, that the people that were calling me were really interested in buying time. But they had no interest in owning the hardware. They had no interest in maintaining the hardware. They had no interest in finding a home for the hardware. Now, if I go back in my career, 20 years, it was the opposite. The physics department wanted their own machine. The math department wanted their own machine, on and on and on. And what would happen is the money would get diffused and you really would never achieve HPC. UNLV was very lucky because at the time that they were created by public law, which is in 1988, then a very young Senator Harry Reid was behind the movement, and Westinghouse. They were able to get around $20 million to stand up a HPC center. And that center's purpose was really to support the activity that was going on out at the Nevada test site. So they were still detonating a weapon once a month. We used to have a joke, how do you spend 200 million in 6 nanoseconds, and that was it. It was lucrative for us at the beginning, but that work after the Clinton administration, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, basically called a moratorium in '94, that work kind of dried out. I came in '97 as director and kind of changed the focus. We kind of moved into medicine and whatnot. And today's conversation about cloud and co-location has to do really more with the business side of HPC, the sustainability, and the ability to keep your center open and serve the science. And when I mean science, I'm talking physics, mathematics, computer science, engineering. So I sit on both sides. Right now, I'm the principal investigator of a large NIH grant, specifically the core PI for data management. We're working with the Cleveland Clinic, that currently has a brain health institute in Las Vegas. It's their first attempt at that. So it's Alzheimer's and dementia and whatnot. I work specifically on the genomic side. So on one hand, I'm writing codes and I'm analyzing. On the other hand, I'm trying to figure out how to keep the doors open and whatnot. So after meeting all these different leaders that were coming in from their even institutions, I had universities walking in wanting to buy time, we started thinking about maybe we should start supporting this in some way, meaning, and if this number, I've heard this number twice, I just heard it at Baylor, and if I'm wrong, somebody come up in dinner and give me the right number, but I've been told that less than 20% of researchers in the US have access to HPC. Does that chime? I'm not sure. So I decided we needed to start talking with the private sector companies, because I knew I could not carry this off by myself. There was too much to do, and we were very deeply involved in university research. So the funny part about this, we are we've closed contracts with a company called Switch. And I'm going to come back to Switch in a minute. And so those are done. We're also close to closing out contracts with another company that we're going to partner with and we feel very comfortable with, but I can't mention their name. And the reason being is general counsel called me yesterday, wanted to see my PowerPoint, and redacted a lot of the slides that were in it. So I'm going to be talking at the 10,000 foot level. And, but that company is sitting in this room right now. I might even be in trouble for saying that. So right now we are a full-service supercomputing center that is, its primary mission is the university, but quite honestly, it never has been. It's had a national mission. My domain name is nscee.edu, not unlv.edu. That was decided by DOE when they came in 1991 when we opened our doors. And they decided that the cybersecurity issues at UNLV were just too great. And so they decided, no, if you want the money, you have to take and actually have a different domain. It's really worked out great for us. The picture you see there is our new science and engineering building. I put it in there on purpose because one of our issues is the latest high-performance computing machine that we received is an Intel box called Cherry Creek, and it came in as an 8,000 core machine, and it could have gone into this brand new building. It would have barely have enough power and enough cooling. But the goal was to immediately upgrade it, so we upgraded it to a 16,000 core, and now it's a 26,000 core. So that leads us to my current data center. And I'm going to go. That data center is in this building. It's Switch Communications, and I'll do this one more time. How many people know Switch? Wow, okay. I've been doing this for 2 years, and 2 years ago it would be no one. So we're inside this building, and we're really lucky because Rob Roy, who is the founder and a good friend, and I like to tell a story. He is in charge of this, and he's the CEO. 14 years ago, we were working on a telemedicine project sponsored by HHS. And we were having lunch, and he was talking about, Joe, we're just around the corner from, we're going to need facilities that can hold tens of thousands of racks. Now, at that time, the most populated areas that I'd seen is the national labs. And they could be 100 racks, 120. I never said anything to Rob. I just said, hey, dude, in my mind, hey, dude, sober up. Where'd you go? So currently in the building I'm in, there's 9,000 racks. There are 11 facilities now in Vegas, 2.4 million square feet of data center. And I don't know what the count is, but the count is over 110,000 racks are there. So I tell Rob, even he was wrong. He was saying 10,000. I was saying 150. And so he is also, he's also currently building a data center next to the gigawatt plant, the Tesla gigawatt plant. So that's 1.4 million additional square feet. He's building a 1 million plus square foot in Grand Rapids. He's building a 800,000 square foot data center in Milan, Italy. And he's building a 1.2 million square foot data center in Thailand. I did the arithmetic. If he's getting 9,000 per facility, he's going to have over 1 million racks under his roof, which is frightening. Now, the nice thing about it is Rob is really, really generous. And he wants to help. He's always had great interest in HPC. And when the Cherry Creek project came around, and I said, well, I can't power it or cool it at the university, even though it's a new building, unless I found a lot of money. And so he said, why don't you just put it up here? We'll find a home for you. And that's the home right now. There's about 66 racks in there. I can have more. In fact, I tested it one time. I said, how many can I have? And this comes back to co-location. My wheels are spinning now, and I'm thinking there might be, and I've already had people come to me saying, well, we don't want to buy cloud, but we would love to buy the hardware, put it and co-locate it next to your machines. Your team then maintains it and blah, blah, blah. So I thought, cool, co-location could work. So I asked Rob if that was possible, and he said absolutely. So he came to me and he said, go ahead and take the space, and let's give it a trial run. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So I decided I wasn't sure how to approach him. He's been very generous. So I said, if you're going to give me a pilot of 1 year, then I'm going to be up here for 1 year. I'm going to blink my eyes twice, and 1 year is going to go by, and I'm going to be in trouble again. I'm going to be moving racks and racks of computers. So he turned around and gave a donation to the university that we are here free of everything. We don't have to pay for power. We don't have to pay for networking. We don't have to pay for the security that's in there, and the security is top-notch. That's why the labs are even in there. They have gear in there. You have the man traps. You have people with guns and all that. So anyway, he came back, and our chancellor's office did not believe it, because they said there's a typo on this, and it was for 10 years. And the lawyers thought it was for 1 year. So we right now have Cherry Creek up there. We had a problem connecting Cherry Creek with the campus. The campus is 5 miles away. So you can see where we now have a dedicated research network. That's the RDMZ. It's currently rated at 200 gigabits per second. And the dark fiber was given to us by Rob. That's another 10-year. You can keep he didn't pay for the gear. We won an award from Cisco to put into Cisco 9000 boxes, which achieved 100 gigabits per second, so a summation of 200. So this is when we came up with the idea, okay, we're sitting here. We can co-locate with almost anybody because we can put in, if somebody came and said, I need space for 100 racks, we could say yes. And so we started the business plan, started up saying, how can we create sustainable HPC? At the same time, the mission is really supporting science. But how do we keep it going? Not every dollar that comes in is going to come from grants. And some of this gear is so special, it'll never come from a grant. You would never, that I know of, ever get money to put in $1.1 million worth of Cisco gear in an NIH grant. You might get 40 grand or something. So anyway, we put this plan together. And like I said, this is one of the facilities. We know the challenges are great. And we know that, there's a lot of prestigious, it's prestigious to be on the 500 list. I did not run the LINPACK this year on the 26,000 core because our science, there were so many timely events going on with the scientists that I don't know how many of you have ever experienced or actually got your hands dirty with LINPACK. How many? Many? Good. So it's a time-consuming thing, and it's very disruptive, and you really make a lot of enemies in the research community because they would rather get their research accomplished than see us on the 500 list, which is fine with me too, actually. So it's good to have an excuse that they bullied me into not running the LINPACK. But the bottom line is we tried to figure out how we can wrap all this up and start serving science. And right now, we'll have customers aboard, meaning people who want to co-locate, people who really want to use our cloud. And we're, besides Cherry Creek, we're real close to cutting a deal on about 240 new nodes, GPU nodes, that will also support deep learning and whatnot. The Alzheimer's research is busy because along with the Alzheimer's research, we're working with a group called, and it's brand new, funded out of the governor's office, the Nevada Institute for Personalized Medicine. So that's genomics and proteomics, and it truly is an HPC issue. Here's, this slide doesn't even belong here, but basically we would be the pipelines. So if you're familiar with that. And I think it was Pete in the last session saying you learn and you learn and you learn when you're in HPC. So about 3 months ago, I found out that because we had just bought or purchased sequencers from Illumina. So I heard there was going to be a training session, a 1-week training session, very intense, but you could learn a lot. So I called the director up of it's Dr. Martin Schiller out of Johns Hopkins, and I said, I would like to participate in that because I know what the back end looks like. I know what the SAM files and the BAM files look like. But I said, how does it work? And so we went through the wet. No, I didn't. I just sat back and watched people who really know what they're doing. But we went from the cancer cell specimen all the way through the sequencing, all the way out through the database and through the pipelines. So it was really interesting. And again, back to lifelong learning. It's really a lot of fun. That's normal. Now, we also do other things at the university, and that is we have some projects here. We have the quantum dynamics of chemical reactions, huge HPC problem. This is also in tandem with, I'm going to forget the university now, but they work with 2 other universities that are using our system. And again, back to how many people have access to HPC. Can we create something here that can create a positive funding stream that comes back into the center, and we just keep buying more gear and making the people who are actually paying in front stakeholders in it so they can help us decide what kind of hardware they need. We have a large contract, actually it's a grant with fracking, and that's Los Alamos. And we have one with magnetically dominated jets of gamma ray burst. I have no idea what they do, but they're astrophysicists and they are HPC people. And that's where I'm going to end because that's all the lawyers will allow me to talk about. And these are the contacts if you're interested in the science that's going on in those 4 areas. And if you have any general questions later, you can send me an email and I'll be more than happy to answer any question. So.
Questions for Joe? Joe, how does somebody pay for time on your machine? You're a university. How do they pay you?
Are you a lawyer? That's where the contracts, this is very, very unique very simple for the private sector. That's all they do. Our general counsel looked at these contracts on how this is all going to work and they just went, what? We don't do this, you know? And I told them we have to do it or we're not going to survive. And they're always talking about, you know, how do you get to the next level? How do you become top tier? Blah, blah, blah. And so our president and our vice president for research 100% said, it's new. We don't see anybody else really doing it that they know of on this level. And trust me, the level we're talking about, when we're talking aerospace, we're talking the biggest companies. When we're talking oil and gas, we're talking the biggest companies. And it will be really nice seeing that money float back in and support the scientific community.
You said 80% of the scientists don't have access to HPC. Can you a little bit elaborate what you mean by 80%? Are those the people who want HPC and don't get any?
That's the way it was explained by, like I said, I listened to it was at a conference I was just at, and it was a neuroscientist talking about genomics. And he basically was complaining that 80% of the research community, now does he mean people who really need HPC? I don't know. But that's what it sounded like to me, that there's a lot of frustrated people out there that would love to get their hands in, and they want access. They don't want to go in the switch, even though I think it's cool. They just want to log in, get on something that's fairly powerful, have some help, have some support on the software side and whatnot. And so if that number is accurate, I don't know, but I'm going to look into it and I'm going to ask. I'm in Washington. In fact, I'm hoping that these contracts settle out because I'm making a presentation in Washington next week at the Internet 2 conference. So I don't know if any of you are going to that, but I'm going to be asking them too to see if there's anybody that really knows what that number is. And maybe this is the guy I should be asking. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time.